Okay, in this video I thought I would show you how you can take an Overleaf project and work with it locally through a Git repository, and that is just kind of like how you would interact with your collaborator. So the setup here is that you have a collaborator. The collaborator is using Overleaf to edit a document, and you want to do that locally, and you may want to do that for a few reasons. It may be that you want to you're not going to have the internet, and you want to be able to work with it locally and not like make sure you don't have any problems because Overleaf is through the browser. But it could also be that you want to use a IDE that's not browser based. So for example, when I'm using Overleaf here, obviously there's the document over here, and then there's the LaTeX over here. And I can resize these windows. That's not really a problem. I can even collapse one all the way, I think. But since I'm working through the browser is capturing some of my hotkeys. So I can't use kind of like my standard workflow with my hotkeys that I like to use when I'm in my own LaTeX editor, which for me is going to be RStudio. So how can I deal with this document, still work with these same collaborators, but work with them when I'm in RStudio or in whatever my LaTeX IDE is, and they're still working in Overleaf. And so that is kind of the basic idea here. So obviously this is the article that I'm working with. It is relatively large, not huge by any stretch, and it doesn't have any figures, which I guess makes that component a little bit easier. I don't have a paid Overleaf account, so I do have an account, but it's not a paid account. So I could upgrade here. I don't think that's going to matter, but I guess we'll find out together as we go through this. I do have a paid GitHub account, and we'll probably encounter that somewhere as we go through this whole process. So I believe I start here with by clicking menu, and then underneath all of this here, the LaTeX stuff is, of course, an operating system and a compiler and so on. And so the paper itself has to have some kind of file name on that operating system. It's almost undoubtedly a Docker container for something. Clearly the paper is called internally on that computer. It's called paper.tech, which is kind of like the most vanilla thing you could possibly imagine. It's being compiled with PDF LaTeX instead of something like XE LaTeX or Lua LaTeX or so on. The TechLive version, so yeah, I mean, just like there's a compiler, that compiler of course has a version, and so on and so forth. Up here we see Git and GitHub. So there's kind of a question as to how this would be done. So one way to do this, and there's Dropbox up here. So it looks like if you use Dropbox, one of these storage solutions, that you could probably create a folder on your Dropbox folder, so it would be like a directory that you would be able to just like double click the tech file and open it up and edit it locally on your computer. That may be the easiest actually, but of course you won't be able to track changes presumably as well. Git and GitHub, so either one of these is going to actually use Git in using the version control that's actually editing the document. The difference here probably is going to be if you use GitHub, you're probably going to end up like forking a whatever this main repo is to your own account's repo, and then maybe you'll submit pull requests or something like that. I mean, Git is going to function directly from the command line. Right? This is what I would guess. So I'm going to go ahead and click Git here. Oh yeah, this is yeah, this is much easier. So so here it's just saying, hey, the repo that I would want to clone is called, this right here. So you can clone, you can git clone your project using the link displayed below. Okay, get authentication tokens. You can also clone your project by using the link below and a get authentication token. I guess that's just going to allow me to like edit this thing here. Let's just kind of go the simpler way and see if that works. And I'm going to try this actually from RStudio and see if I can kind of do that here. So I'll go over to RStudio, and I'm actually going to try it like this. I don't know if this will work, but we'll give it a go, see what happens. So I'm going to try to make a new repository, which is going to be like on the RStudio side, it will be an RStudio project, but that RStudio project will be created by a cloned repository that's coming from some remote Git repository. Normally I would just say GitHub. But here it may not actually be GitHub. It may be something that the AMS is hosting specifically for that. So like the AMS creates Overleaf, of course. So let's say maybe, what would it be called? I'll leave in like the HTTPS part there, but obviously I don't need the git clone part here. So I'll kill that. The project directory name, oh, that's really weird. I'll leave it at that. And then, you know, you can kind of put this wherever you want. For me, this is actually probably the right spot to put this. So I'll open in a new session and I'll create project. Let's see if this works. Oh, now it wants my Overleaf username, and that makes sense because this is, I believe it's a private project. So gmail.com, and hopefully I'll remember the password. I don't, of course. So I'll have to go to my own passwords here. Let's see, what is my Overleaf password? I have no idea. That's some jumble of mess. Okay, click that. Okay, it liked it. That was good. That makes things a lot easier. We always like it when it goes straight through. So let's see what we got over here. Cool. So this is all of the stuff that is in that repository on Overleaf. Now, obviously it has this like weird name, but that's because internally Overleaf doesn't really care what you call those documents, right? I mean, and to some extent, it tries to make it, it tries to abstract it away from the user, right? Because the user, ultimately, they just want to make a paper. Almost always. That's what they want to do. They want a paper, and they want to write it with somebody else, and they want to both be able to edit it, and it be in the cloud, and so on. So it's just called paper.tech. And here, I could probably click compile PDF, or I could push Command-Shift-K, which is the same thing. Compiling using TinyTech. TinyTech is a LaTeX distribution. And here, I probably have it set up so that it is using XE LaTeX, and it is. Let's go ahead and change that to PDF LaTeX because we saw earlier that that's how that is the distribution of LaTeX that is actually being used to compile this document on Overleaf. So we'll go ahead and do that. Hopefully this won't cause any issues. The fact that it's still compiling is not a good sign. I'll come back here. Let's see. Okay, there's some stuff that it doesn't have. So it's going to try to download those packages and then use them. And there, great, it worked. I'm going to move this to its own window here. So now, you know, this is that document I want, and let's just make sure that I'm editing, in fact, this document. So UNM-conf and R package for Bayesian regression. Okay, I'll go back to this thing, and I'll change the title. UNM-conf, that's right here, and I'll just put in, you know, this. Let's make sure it actually updates. And if it does, okay, great. So I've got this here. That looks good. Now, how would I make it visible on Overleaf, right? So if I went back to Overleaf here, I want to make sure that my changes, of course, that I save locally will update here. So let's go ahead and make a test. So actually, I'll go ahead and do that again. I'll put this kind of all this stuff here, and maybe I'll even compile it with TinyTech. And like that is the new version of the paper. Those are the changes that I've made. Obviously, I will not want to do that, but I'll go ahead and do that. I can click up here with this Git thing, or I believe it's Control-Option-M. This opens up that Git pane. I'm not going to commit anything that is not already committed. I don't think that that's a great idea. So, in other words, when you see the yellow stuff here, that's something that the Git repository itself is not tracking. So that's fine, because I mean, it's the git ignore. There's kind of like the stuff that is just because I'm using it. There's the RStudio project part that's just because I'm using RStudio to do the editing. I could use TechShop or whatever to do it, but I'm not. There is the PDF. I thought it was actually tracking the PDF, but I guess not. You know, the PDF is a created thing from the basic .tex file, and it can be not a great idea to track that because it's not really like it's not clearly a text-based thing. PDFs are actually like directories and they have internal stuff and so on. In any event, this is the thing I want to change. So what's going to happen is I'm going to push up just the tech file to Overleaf and it will do the compilation up there. So I'll say test commit. I'll commit this. So now I've committed it locally on my computer. I need, of course, to push it up to Overleaf. That should not be a problem. So I push just like this. I'll go back to Overleaf and let's see what it does. I don't know if I'm going to need to like refresh this web page or what, but I guess I'll refresh the web page. So here's the refreshed web page and boom, yeah, nice. It's got it right there. I can scroll down. These are the changes that I made and let's see if I can see this under history. History actions have a new home. Okay. You via Git. Okay, cool. So that's like how it shows up. What changes I have made, and I could revert those changes, and so on. So that is the basic way that I will interact with this, which is much simpler, I think, because now, I'm not tethered to having like two windows that are kind of halfsies in one window on one screen. I usually work in a setup where I have many different screens, and I like to have, all of this stuff, all of the script on one screen, and that's turned vertical, and then all of the PDF stuff on another screen that's turned vertical, and then I can kind of see the whole thing. Well, I can't do that easily here. Maybe there is some way to do it through Overleaf, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't care to learn how to do it. So instead, I will just interact with it here. So before I go any further, maybe I'll go ahead and undo what I just did. Not reverting it, I'll just update commit. And these messages, they don't get thrown away. I'm sure I could find them somewhere on Overleaf, but they're kind of pointless. Now remember, presumably you could run into merge conflicts somewhere where you edit something, somebody else is editing at the same time, and you don't see it until you try to push up. So maybe the better practice is actually kind of more just like standard software development, where you make your changes locally. So I make this change here and so on, and so I would commit the changes that I make, and then I pull to make sure that nobody has made any other changes on Overleaf. And if they did make changes, hopefully it's just a fast forwarding change and it just says updating your document or whatever. Great. It could be that there's a merge conflict, and then in that case, the conflicted files would show up over here. It's probably just going to be paper.tex, but it could be that it's others too. That like you change a figure and they change a figure, and now those aren't the same, and you got to figure out which of the figures should it be. Whatever the case is, ultimately you will resolve that conflict. You'll make a commit locally that will have merged them together and resolve the conflict, and then you'll push the whole thing up to Overleaf. Okay, so that is the basic workflow. Pretty straightforward. So they make it really easy to interact with Git repositories or something else going on locally in a Overleaf project, which is actually really nice. Hope this has helped.